The first secret surfaced long before the police ever knocked on the door. It began with a voice note. 30 seconds of whispering captured accidentally on an old phone. Detective Mara Hensley listened to it over and over later, trying to decide whether the breathless words were a plea or a warning. But on the morning it was recorded, 12-year-old Emily Hardin was simply searching for a charger. She wasn't supposed to be in her brother's room. She wasn't supposed to hear anything. And she certainly wasn't supposed to learn what her twin brothers, 15-year-olds Caleb and Jonah, had been doing when everyone thought they were helping their little sister with homework. The whisper on the recording was unmistakably terrified. "Stop, please. Mom can't know." Emily never told anyone how she felt that day. She just slipped the phone into her hoodie pocket and went to school like nothing had happened. But children carry dread differently. They tuck it beneath their ribs and keep walking. By the time their mother, Caroline Hardin, found out, it was already far too late. Caroline was the kind of woman neighbors trusted. Soft-spoken, patient. The person who babysat for free, because kids just need to feel safe. No one would have guessed the cracks forming inside her house. Her husband had walked out 2 years earlier. Caleb shut down. Jonah became unpredictable. Emily withdrew into silence. Caroline did everything a single mother could: therapy, parent-teacher meetings, weekend camping trips. From the outside, it looked like resilience. On the inside, something darker had taken root. The boys grew closer. Too close. Teachers whispered that the twins treated Emily a little differently, always watching where she sat, who she talked to. There were unexplained arguments, sudden mood swings, weeks where Emily refused to be alone with them. Caroline assumed it was normal teenage tension. She was wrong. The truth finally surfaced on a rainy Tuesday evening. Emily was in the bathroom, crying harder than Caroline had ever heard. When she opened the door, Emily shoved the old phone into her mother's hands. The same recording began playing. Caroline didn't breathe, didn't blink. Her world narrowed to the trembling little girl in front of her. "What did they do to you?" she whispered. Emily couldn't answer. Caroline went cold. That was the moment everything changed. The confrontation happened less than an hour later. The boys were sprawled on the living room floor playing video games, arguing about whose turn it was. They didn't even see their mother approach until she was standing between them, holding the phone. "Explain this." The twins froze. Their eyes darted to each other, an unspoken language they'd always had. Normally it helped them cheat on homework or lie about chores. But in this moment, it exposed something horrifying. They were calculating, not guilty, not remorseful, just cornered. "Mom, it's nothing," Caleb tried first. "It's not what it sounds like," Jonah added. Emily backed away. Caroline felt something inside her snap, a final thread pulled too tight for too long. "You hurt your sister." Caleb swallowed. "We didn't." The slap echoed through the room. Caleb stumbled backward, clutching his cheek. Jonah lunged toward Caroline to shove her away, but she grabbed a fireplace poker before he even reached her. The metal glinted under the lamp. "Sit down," she ordered. They obeyed. That was the moment her sons realized she wasn't the mother they remembered. She was something far more dangerous. What Caroline did next was never fully documented. Detectives only pieced together fragments. The frantic neighbors hearing Ray's voices, one of the twins screaming, a thud, someone running through the hall. By the time police arrived, Caleb and Jonah were injured but alive, and their mother was sitting on the porch, shaking, staring into the rain. Emily was curled against her side, silent. Caroline said one thing before being taken into custody. No one else was going to protect her. Detective Hensley wasn't prepared for how complicated the case would become. Everyone wanted a simple narrative: abusive sons, protective mother, open-end shut vigilante case. But nothing in that house was simple. For starters, the injuries didn't match Caroline's story. She claimed she grabbed the poker because Jonah tried to attack her, but forensics showed Caleb had taken the worst of it, and Jonah's injuries looked more like he'd fallen or been pushed. Emily gave conflicting statements. 3 different versions, none matching perfectly. One said her brothers had hurt her lots of times. Another said they only threatened her. One said she never wanted them punished at all. The boys refused to talk. Lawyers told them to stay silent, but detectives noticed something chilling. The twins weren't angry at Caroline. They were afraid of each other, deeply, violently. When separated in different interview rooms, each boy insisted the other was the one who started everything. Each blamed the other for manipulating Emily. Each claimed the other had planned to lie to their mother if the truth ever came out. Twins were supposed to share everything: thoughts, habits, tendencies. But these two, they shared only secrets and fear. Detective Hensley realized she wasn't dealing with a straightforward case. She was dealing with a psychological battleground. Investigators uncovered 3 key truths. 1. Emily had indeed been manipulated by her brothers, but whether both equally or one more than the other remained unclear. 2. Caroline had known something was wrong for months, but ignored the signs because she was terrified of losing what little family she had left. 3. The night of the attack wasn't spontaneous. The poker had fingerprints from all 3 siblings. Someone had tried to take it first. But who? When Detective Hensley confronted Emily gently with this detail, the girl broke down. Her confession changed the entire trajectory of the case. "I tried to stop them," she whispered. "But Jonah told Caleb they blamed me. They always do. They said Mom would choose them over me." "Did they hurt you?" the detective asked. Emily nodded slowly. "Then, they said if I told Mom, I wouldn't wake up." It wasn't the abuse alone that triggered Caroline's violent reaction. It was a threat. But then Emily added something even more chilling. Caleb wasn't like Jonah. He didn't want to do it. Jonah made him. That single sentence divided the twins forever. Caroline's trial became a national storm. Single mother, abused daughter, violent retaliation. Headlines called her the vigilante mom, the lioness, the hardened protector. Some painted her as a hero defending her child. Others called her unstable, dangerous, a threat to due process. But the real twist came when the defense was in its psychological evaluations, showing Jonah exhibited early signs of predatory behavior: manipulation, coercion, dominance, while Caleb showed symptoms of trauma, guilt, and dependency on his twin. One boy was the architect. The other, the follower, Emily, the collateral. Caroline claimed she never intended to kill anyone, just scare them enough to stop. The jury deliberated for 5 hours. She was convicted of assault, but spared the maximum sentence. The judge acknowledged the profound emotional trauma involved. She would serve 3 years, with mandatory psychological treatment. The twins were sent to separate juvenile facilities, evaluated individually. Jonah was recommended for long-term psychiatric intervention. Caleb was placed in a rehabilitative program. Emily lived with an aunt out of state, trying to rebuild a childhood that had shattered too early. For a moment, it seemed like the case was closed, until a detective received a final piece of evidence, a second recording found months later on the old phone. A male voice whispered. She told, "We need to fix it tonight." Only one of the twins could be heard clearly. But which one? Detective Hensley increased the volume, listening for breathing patterns, voice pitch, background noise, and it didn't prove who planned the next step of the secret. The chilling part wasn't what was said. It was the ending. A second voice whispered, "Don't worry, Mom will never know." Both voices sounded almost identical. One manipulator, one follower. But in this recording, they sounded unified. The detective leaned back in her chair, replaying the recording again. Something felt wrong. Something didn't match the psychological profiles. Something about that night didn't align with the boys' testimonies. Had Emily told the full truth? Had Caroline known more than she admitted? Had the twins acted together, or were they covering for someone else entirely? The case file remains open. And the final question still haunts Detective Hensley. What if the real mastermind in that house was never one of the boys at all? Detective Mara Hensley replayed the recording until the sound distorted into static. 2 voices, 2 boys, 2 possibilities that never aligned cleanly with the evidence. But something about that whisper, "Mom will never know," kept piercing through her thoughts like a needle. It didn't fit the timeline. It suggested premeditation, not impulse. It suggested unity, not conflict. It suggested a secret the family still hadn't told. She opened the Hardin case file again. The photos, the statements, the psychologist's notes, the diagrams of the living room from the night Caroline snapped, the first recording, the newly discovered second one. The twins were divided in every documented way except that single, chilling piece of audio. And if both boys were speaking calmly, in low whispers, making a plan, why did only one of them act terrified afterward? Why did the other stay silent? Why did Emily keep changing her story? The more the detective looked at the case, the more she felt that something essential had been overlooked. Something small. Something intentional. The Hardins weren't a broken family. They were a controlled one. Caroline Hardin had been in the county detention facility for 5 months when Detective Hensley finally got approval to interview her again. The mother sat across from her, hair pulled back, eyes hollow, hands folded neatly on the table. She looked like someone who spoke softly, because raising her voice would shatter her completely. "Emily is safe, right?" Caroline asked first. "She is." Detective Hensley assured her. "She's doing better. Therapy. School. She's adjusting." Caroline closed her eyes with relief. But Hensley noticed something odd. Caroline's shoulders relaxed only halfway, as if she was still bracing for something. "I need to ask you about the boys," the detective began. "Both of them." Caroline's jaw tightened. "I already told you everything." "No," Hensley said gently. "You told us everything you wanted us to believe." Caroline's eyes lifted slowly. There was fear in them. Fear, and a kind of exhaustion that felt older than her years. "Caleb," Hensley continued, "shows signs of coercion and guilt. Jonah shows signs of manipulation. But neither boy is consistent. Not with the injuries. Not with the timeline. Not with the new recording we found." Caroline's face went white. "You found another one?" "We did. And Caroline, they weren't fighting in that recording." Silence. They were planning something. The mother's breath hitched. She spread her fingers on the metal table, as if grounding herself. "You want to know the truth?" she whispered. Hensley nodded. "I didn't protect Emily soon enough. That's the truth. What about the boys?" Caroline swallowed hard. "I wasn't just scared of what they did to her," she whispered. "I was scared of what they were becoming." Detective Hensley leaned forward. "Caroline, did you know they were planning something before that night?" The mother's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "They told me once," she said, voice trembling, "that we didn't need their father, that they could take care of things themselves, that families work better when everyone listens." Her voice cracked. They were only 13 when they said it. Meanwhile, at the juvenile facility, Jonah Hardin remained unreadable. He stayed silent in every counseling session, responded to questions only with nods or shrugs, and spent long stretches staring out the window, as if studying patterns no one else could see. Caleb, however, was different. He cried often. He apologized constantly, to staff, to counselors, even to empty air. He confessed to small lies, minor misdeeds, anything that looked like guilt. But he never admitted to harming Emily. Not once. During his 6th therapy review, the clinical psychologist made a note that caught Detective Hensley's attention. "Caleb displays hypervigilance around discussing his twin. Reports feeling bound to him. Shows signs of dissociation when recounting shared events." Bound. Dissociation. Shared events. It wasn't criminal evidence. But in cases involving twins with a dominant/submissive dynamic, those 3 words were red flags. Hensley got permission to speak to Caleb directly. The boy sat across from her in a small interview room, fingers trembling as he pulled at the frayed edge of his sleeve. "You're not in trouble," she assured him. "I just need clarity." He nodded. "Caleb, do you remember the night your mother confronted you?" He blinked fast. "Yes." "You and Jonah were together?" Another nod. "Did Jonah tell you what to say?" Caleb opened his mouth, then closed it. His breathing quickened. "Caleb," the detective said gently, "was Jonah the one who planned it?" His eyes filled instantly, but he didn't answer. Instead, he whispered, "How do you know which voice is which?" The detective leaned in. "What do you mean?" Caleb stared at her with a pain so deep it looked older than any 15-year-old should ever feel. "You all keep asking which of us did it," he said. "But no one ever asked if we want the same thing." Hensley felt her stomach tighten. "What did you want, Caleb?" He wiped his tears with the heel of his palm. "To be different," he whispered. "To be someone different. But Jonah," he shook his head slowly. "Jonah said we had to be the same. He said we weren't allowed to think separately. He said we'd lose each other." Caleb lowered his voice until it was barely audible. "He said I'd lose myself." Detective Hensley felt a chill slide down her spine. "Caleb," she said carefully, "Jonah can't control you anymore." The boy looked up sharply. "You don't understand," he said. "Jonah wasn't the problem." The detective's breath caught. "Then who is?" Caleb hesitated. 1 second, 2, then 3, before whispering something so quietly the room seemed to freeze around him. "It wasn't Jonah's idea," he said. "It wasn't mine either." "Then whose?" Caleb's eyes filled with terror as he leaned forward and whispered, "Emily told us to." Detective Hensley froze. "That's not possible." Caleb shook his head violently, tears streaming down his face. "She said she wanted us to pay attention to her. She said Mom never listened unless someone cried. She said we had to help her scare Mom." The detective's pulse hammered in her ears. "Caleb, Emily was a victim." "No," he said firmly, desperately. "That's what Jonah wanted everyone to think. But Emily, she's the one who started it. She told us what to do. She said if we didn't help her, she'd tell Mom things that weren't true." Hensley felt the room tilt. "You're saying Emily manipulated both of you?" Caleb shook his head again, slower this time. "Not both," he whispered. "Just me." A pause. Jonah already knew. The detective's heart pounded. "Knew what?" Caleb's voice shook so hard it almost broke apart. "That she liked playing us against each other. That she liked watching us fight. That she liked being the center of everything." He swallowed hard. "But Jonah said we couldn't tell Mom, because if she found out, Emily would do the same thing to her." Detective Hensley felt a cold wave hit her chest. This wasn't a simple abuse case. This wasn't a simple manipulator-victim dynamic. This was something far more twisted, far more psychological, far more dangerous. She pushed gently. "Caleb, the second recording we found, the one where both voices whisper." He nodded slowly. "That wasn't us planning anything," he said. "That was us arguing." "Arguing about what?" Caleb looked directly at her. "About what Emily said she'd do to Mom if we didn't keep her secret." Detective Hensley felt the world narrow into a sharp, terrifying point. "What secret, Caleb?" The boy's lip trembled. "The secret she told Jonah when she thought I was asleep." Detective Hensley braced herself. "What did she tell him?" Caleb whispered. "She said she knew what happened the night Dad left. And she said if Jonah didn't help her, she'd tell everyone the truth." Hensley swallowed hard. "What truth?" Caleb wiped his face, trembling all over. "That Dad didn't walk out." He stared at the table. "He never left at all." Detective Hensley went still. "Caleb, where's your father?" The boy finally broke completely, sobbing into his hands. "I don't know," he cried. "But Emily does." Detective Mara Hensley had heard thousands of lies in her career, but Caleb's trembling confession didn't feel like a lie. It felt like a door unlocking, a door no one wanted opened. Hensley returned to her car, closed the door, and listened again to the second recording, the one with the whisper. Mom will never know. For the first time, she realized the fear in the voice wasn't about getting caught. It was about who might catch them. Emily, the smallest one in the family, the quiet one, the victim. Hensley knew she needed to speak to the girl, carefully, gently. Emily had been living with her aunt, a woman who answered the door with tight lips and tired eyes, like someone who'd forgotten how to host guests. "Emily's in her room," the aunt said, "but she's different now. She doesn't talk about the past. She doesn't talk much at all." The detective nodded. "Trauma is a complicated thing. So is guilt, and so is power." Emily sat cross-legged on the bed, coloring in absolute silence. She didn't look up when Hensley entered. Her pencil scraped slowly across paper. Soft, steady strokes. "Hi, Emily," the detective said gently. "Do you remember me?" The girl nodded without turning. "I came because I need to understand something important. Something only you know." Emily's hand paused mid-stroke. Hensley took a breath. "The night your brothers were hurt, did you see something you didn't tell us?" This time Emily did look up. Her eyes were calm. Too calm. "What did Caleb say?" she asked quietly. The detective's chest tightened. "He told me you knew something about your father." Emily blinked once. Then again, but not in confusion, in calculation. She set the pencil down with delicate precision. "Mom told him he left," she whispered. "But he didn't." Hensley leaned in, heart pounding. "Emily, where's your dad?" Emily's voice softened. "I don't know where he is." The detective frowned. "But Caleb said you knew what happened." Emily cut her off with a gentle shake of the head. "I only know what I heard." A long silence filled the room. Hensley's pulse hammered in her ears. "What did you hear?" she whispered. Emily's next words were so soft they barely existed. "I heard Mom crying, and Jonah asking her if we were safe now. And Mom said, 'As long as he's gone, we're okay.'" Detective Hensley went still. Emily wasn't finished. And then Jonah said, "Do we have to tell Caleb?" And Mom said, "No, he's too soft. He can't handle the truth." Hensley felt her heart twist painfully. "Emily," she managed, "why didn't you tell us this earlier?" The girl looked at her with an expression the detective had never seen on a child's face. Something deep, old, and quietly strategic. "Because I wanted Mom to come home," Emily whispered. "And if I told you everything, she wouldn't." Hensley stared at her. "Emily, your father, do you think he's alive?" The girl's eyes shifted, down, away, then back up, steady and chilling. "I know he's not." The detective swallowed. "How?" Emily's voice dropped to a near whisper. "Because Jonah told me he helped her." Hensley's breath caught. "Helped her what?" Emily looked her straight in the eyes. No fear, no hesitation, no confusion. Her lips parted slowly. "To bury him." Hensley's stomach dropped so violently she nearly lost her balance. Emily's next words were the killing blow. "And Jonah said if Caleb ever found out, he'd dig him up." The detective's mind exploded with connections. The control, the manipulation, the whispered threats, the unity between the twins in the second recording, the strange fear Jonah inspired, the way Caroline snapped only when Emily showed a phone, the way Emily carefully shaped every story, the way everything pointed to one quiet truth. The family's darkest secret wasn't what the twins did to Emily. IT was what Emily knew about the night their father disappeared. Detective Hensley tried to speak, tried to steady her breath, but Emily leaned in before she could. "You asked why Jonah wasn't angry," she said softly. Hensley froze. Emily smiled, small, sad, and terrifying. "It's because Jonah doesn't feel fear." The detective felt ice crawl up her spine. "And Caleb," she whispered. Emily tilted her head slightly. "He feels everything." The girl picked up her pencil again and resumed coloring, as peacefully as if she'd never said a word. Detective Hensley stood, legs numb. "Emily," she asked, voice trembling, "why are you telling me this now?" The child's pencil stopped. Her voice turned into a whisper that hollowed the room. "Because Jonah told me something before they took him away." The detective braced herself. Emily whispered, "He said Mom didn't finish the job." Hensley's heart crashed against her ribs. "What job?" Emily finally looked up, eyes dark and glistening with truth far older than her years. "He said Dad isn't the only one in the ground." The detective felt her entire world tilt. "Emily, who else is buried?" The girl smiled, soft and eerie. "Jonah didn't tell me that part." She paused, then leaned closer. "But he said he will when he comes home." Detective Hensley stepped back, pulse roaring in her ears. Emily lowered her voice to a whisper shaped like a blade. "Don't you get it? This isn't over.